Hello and welcome to the Lone Star Christmas Tree Skirt Sew Along. I'm Jennifer at HopefulHomemaker.com and I'm thrilled to welcome you to today's official kickoff for this project. We're really excited to have you join us and hope that you have a great experience. If you haven't already purchased a pattern, it's available in my Etsy shop, which is also called Hopeful Homemaker. You can find a link to the pattern here on my blog below this video. And go ahead and print that and get ready to get started. I neglected to mention in last week's video that the pattern does include this awesome coloring page for you. So if you're having any questions or concerns about planning your color placement, you can use that to help you figure out where you want your fabrics. The work that we're going to do this week will cover the first 6 steps in the pattern. So as you prepare to do that, you can look over the pattern and see what we're going to be doing. The very first step for today is to cut our fabrics. So let's get started. Okay, so here we are with the fabrics, and these are the fabrics I'm using to make my star. I did decide to swap in the red at the very center, so I'm going to be using that for my fabric number 1, and then this will be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. You'll notice in the pattern that we have provided you with a little spot where you can either cut a piece of fabric and stick a swatch there so you don't get your fabrics out of order. I chose to just write in which print I'm using for each of those to make sure that I don't get confused. So if you're worried that you might get a little bit confused with your placement of your star, then utilize your pattern and make that note. And what we're going to be doing is just cutting our strips. You're going to cut one piece of fabric 1 and 7. Fabrics 2 and 6 will need 2 strips. Fabrics 3 and 5 will need 3 strips. And fabric number 4 in the center of your star around that main ring that is going to take 4 strips. So based on that and based on the width that you find in the pattern, we are just going to be cutting our strips. I have already made sure I have a straight edge along one side, and I've lined up this bottom edge really well. And I should warn you here that I am left-handed. So everything I do might look a little bit backwards to you. Just go ahead and mirror me and you're going to be great. So if I always look like I'm cutting from the wrong side, now you know my secret. The secret's out, I am left-handed. So I'm just going to carefully cut the strip, and once I do, I'm going to make sure that I also keep them in order, but because I have my notes written on my pattern, it's not a really big deal. So I'm just going to take that and set it aside and get ready to do fabric number 2. And so we're just going to continue through all of our prints like that. So just go through from fabrics 1 through 7 and make sure that you cut the right number of strips, again according to the pattern, and pretty soon you will have all of the cutting done. No big deal. Just make sure you keep your edges straight here so that your strip, when you open it up, is perfectly straight. Straighten out that edge and make sure you do accurate cutting. Okay, so I have now cut all of my fabrics. I have 1 of fabric 1, 2 strips of fabric 2 strips of fabric 2, 3 strips of fabric 3, 4 of 4, 3 of 5, 2 of 6, and 1 of 7. So I've got all of my prints here. I want to say a quick word about pressing. Pressing is a really important part of making a Lone Star. And you may notice that my gingham that I've used is a woven, and it is longer than the other fabrics. Don't worry about the length, but when you are using wovens and other things, you may want to starch your strips just to try and help prevent any warping or fraying as you sew. With strips as wide as we're using for the tree skirt, it's not maybe quite as important, but if you were doing this with 1.5 inch strips, I would highly recommend that you do some starching and pressing. I prefer to use Mary Ellen's Best Press. I like this product a lot, and I'm going to demonstrate for you briefly how I use it in preparing my strips before I start sewing, just so that you have that little piece of information in case it's something that you're interested in. And if you're worried about bias and stretching or warping of your prints as we go through this, you may want to try it and see if it helps you. For our purposes in this video right now, I am using my favorite wool pressing mat. I really love it. It's great. If I were doing this on my own, I would just do it on my ironing board because it's so much longer, but I just want to demonstrate for you how I like to use the Best Press. So you can see that I have the print facing down on my ironing pad or ironing board. I've got a little bit of a wrinkle in here that I probably should have ironed out a little bit better. So I'm going to lightly spray with the Best Press, and then I'm going to turn it over. So I just put the starch on the back, and now I'm going to iron from the front. And here's the key. We are pressing, not ironing. So we're going to press down with the iron and lift directly up. Press down and lift up. It's very tempting when ironing to start doing this, where we move the iron along and manipulate the fabric. But as you are working on your Lone Star project, you're going to want to work hard to create a habit of pressing up and down, directly up and down, instead of moving the iron around. If I move my iron around and go back and forth, it's easy to start stretching and bowing the fabrics, especially since we're working with strips that are the entire width of the fabric. You don't want to sew your strips together and have them be arced because of how we did it. And ironing is a lot of the problem. So make sure, as with everything we do in this project, that you are pressing and not moving your iron around, but down, directly up, down, directly up. It might take more time, but what you're going to find is it helps keep your edges more crisp and straight, which is a key to having your points work out well. And it just gives a little bit more substance to the fabric. You can kind of see this one holds its shape a little bit more than the one that the end I haven't pressed yet. So I often will starch my strips, all of them, before I sew, especially on smaller stars or smaller widths of fabric. But this is up to you in this project. I just wanted you to know how I do it. And with that, then what we will do next is we will get our strips all arranged in their sets. So you can see that you're going to need 4 sets, A, B, C, and D. This is step 2 in your pattern. Your first set, set A, is going to need fabric 1, fabric 2, fabric 3, and fabric 4. That is set A. The second set is going to take 2, 3, 4, and 5. So those are your first 2 sets. So there's 1 and there's 2. Then with number 3, you're going to use number 3, number 4, number 5, and now you're going to use one of number 6. You've got 4 there, and then your final strip is all you have left. It's going to start with fabric number 4, then go to number 5, number 6, and finally number 7. So these are our 4 sets of fabric strips. Set A, set B, set C, and set D. So arrange your fabrics according to that, and you're going to need to keep these in these groups and in the order that you've arranged them in, so that every fabric will show up in the star in the place that you want it in to create your radiating star as it goes out from the center. So the next step is for us to start sewing our strips together.